Hey everyone, this is the Astrology Gene Hart radio show, and do we have a show for you tonight? We have a water wizard who's going to come and talk to us a lot about water. I bet you never thought about water, huh? I bet you never thought you'd hear a show about water. But it's really interesting how water ties in to some of the configurations that are going on in the astrology right now. Jupiter is getting ready to turn the corner and go into the sign Libra, and Libra rules your kidneys. And so to keep your kidneys running well, you gotta drink a lot of water. The other thing I want to say about Jupiter and Libra is that it actually can influence the taste of water and change the taste as it travels through the zodiac. It's kind of amazing. So we have a water wizard. His name is Joseph Binder. He has spent 35 years in water purification and water enhancement research. His work has brought him to 3 separate continents where he has implemented water enhancement technologies for the biomedical, pharmaceutical, the bottled water, and cosmetic industries. 3 separate continents. I've only been to 2. With the mind of the scientist, the soul of a poet, and an intuitive gift, Joseph Binder has brought innovation to these industries by translating the unseen mysteries of water into products that connect people to more vibrant health and happiness. And we all want to be happy, right? So we got to drink the right kind of water. With that being said, I want to introduce you to Joseph. And hi, Joseph, tell us more.
Hello, Jean.
Hey.
Water is the most exciting subject. I've studied different scientific things and I would get bored, but when I started studying water, I realized that I could spend my entire life researching it and never scratch the surface.
Does it have a surface?
The boundary layer is part of its uniqueness in that having no form of its own, it takes the form of everything it comes in contact with. It's the ultimate mediator, translator, and connector between energetic worlds, between the cosmic kingdom and the plant kingdom, between the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom, the mineral kingdom. All these, the exchange takes place through water.
Wow.
And, the word for heaven in Hebrew is actually Aish, which means fire or plasma, Mayim, water.
Wow.
Plasma, water. And so, in the book of Genesis, it says that God spoke upon the water, so water actually exists before creation. Matter of fact, creation comes from water, the primal water, which the physical water is a representation or a shadow of.
I've always thought of water as part of matter and the place where we balance our karma. Peter was always depicted as walking on the water, and Jesus had to help him and keep him from sinking in. The water represents the emotional body in my world, and all of us have to get a mastery on it.
And that is definitely a key aspect of water. It's actually, I believe, from my research, it's in the, when you look at a cell, the water inside a cell, as opposed to extracellular water or other body fluid water, where the mitochondria life engine is, you could cut a cell in half and the water would not spill out because it's in almost a gelatinous form at that point. It's so highly structured. And I believe that consciousness needs structured water to house itself in matter.
Boy, gelatinousness, that's like a $10 word if I ever heard one. Gelatinousness, what does that mean?
It's the protein layers are actually the boundary that the water houses itself in, but the water is so, even the DNA spiral, if you look at it, it's actually water holding the DNA together, not the DNA surrounded by water. The water is very special and structured. And so once water is structured enough, consciousness can interface with matter. Aging is simply slow cellular dehydration.
Oh, wow.
And so when you can't, a baby, for example, is about 89% water, full of life, breathing with life. And then as we age, we come to where we're about 70% water. And when we start to die, once we get below about 63% water, we can't maintain life in physicality anymore, because there's not enough structured water for our consciousness to stay.
Amazing. You know, when I'm doing people's charts, I always say at the very beginning that you're 70 to 90% water, and that the moon pulls on your tide all day long. It's up and down. Why wouldn't it? And so that defines mood swings and where you go with your moods. So water.
Exactly.
I mean, it's amazing. All of it. It's kind of over my head a little, but we have to keep it simple.
And think of the planet as an organism itself. It also has 70% water on its surface. So it's a kind of like a living organism that is equally affected, as we know, by the tides and by other cellular bodies influence in subtler ways the water flow. We can measure temperature changes when certain rotations of the sun and the planets line up. We can see in underground springs something changes. And so it's influencing it way at the Earth's core, underground even. The subtle influences of these celestial bodies are affecting the planetary water and, of course, the water within ourselves.
Wow. That's amazing information. And you know what's really interesting to me about water is that you can play, if you're a scientist in the lab, you can play certain kinds of music like Beethoven, Mozart, and the water will make formations that are just amazingly beautiful. And yet when you play syncopated music, you know, with intense rock beats or rap beats, the formations that they make are very distorted. What is that Japanese guy's name?
Emoto.
Yeah.
Yeah, he came to my lab years ago because he had heard about my research. I had a lab called Meta Labs, and I was testing subtle energy, water that had been affected by healers and psychics and all sorts of different people that had machines. And I had a way to test UV spectrometry, surface tension, all sorts of characteristics. I had a pH meter that could measure several resolutions, down super fine. And we could even speak words over a petri dish of water and see changes taking place.
Wow.
In the surface tension, in the pH. And so, and we did, my work with crystallology was a little different from Emoto's in that we would bring water to right below freezing, right before it crystal expands. And then if the water was structured, then we would release all the water and we'd find the crystals and weigh them and find out the more structured water was, the more information, coherent information was in water, the more ice crystals would be in it at above freezing.
Wow. That's very interesting. I wonder what that means to us, as humans consuming water.
Well, have you ever noticed that when you get yelled at and depolarized, the next thing you have to do is go to the bathroom?
Nobody ever yells at me. I'll have to have someone yell at me and try that.
But we immediately start to lose structure. Think of a piece of fruit. It's this beautiful, ripe piece of fruit, and then it's plucked from the tree, and it's disconnected from the life force, and the fruit still stays. The water stays structured, but then once it starts dying, it gets all mushy. And what that means is the water has depolarized and coming out of the cell and back into liquid form.
Wow. So
equally, I have taken and measured. I have some fine instrumentation that measured intercellular, extracellular water, and doctors would send me their patients that they weren't getting breakthrough with. They were giving them the nutrients and the herb medicine, but they weren't getting the results. And in almost every case, it was a condition of these people were not hydrating properly.
Wow.
And so what I would do is hook them up on this machine, and I worked with different hydration protocols. There was one lady in particular that was a very sick lady that whenever she drank water, she would dehydrate.
That's odd.
Well, and when I saw that, I walked out of the room, and I'm like, oh, God, you're going to have to help me on this one because I do not want to know what's going on. And the Spirit spoke to my heart and said, what's more important than water? And I said, breath. And I watched, and her breathing was very shallow, high up in her chest and her throat. And what I had to do was teach her how to abdominally breathe while she was drinking water, and then the water would go into her body. She would hydrate. She was so low on energy. You've got to understand that random bulk water that we normally drink, even purified water, is rather chaotic. And so the body has to spend an enormous amount of energy to structure that water so that the body can actually use it.
Wow.
And so when you drink an 8-ounce glass of water, first of all, only 4 ounces can actually even be used. Most of it just dumps and is used for elimination or digestion to help move things through our body. But of that 4 ounces, most people can only get a thimbleful of it into their body if they're healthy. That's why most people are dehydrated most of their life.
Amazing.
Because what happens is you come under some stress. You didn't take care, follow your chart and see the warning signs, and you get stressed out, and at the same time you get dehydrated. And what the brain does is goes, okay, there's a crisis here. I'm going to start rationing water to keep this person alive. So the primary purpose of hydration is digestion and elimination.
Right.
I'm going to make sure that they do that so they don't toxify and die. But the secondary and tertiary uses of water, the finer biochemical functions that have to do with thriving, with happiness, with joy, with living an abundant life, I'm going to hold back because I don't know I'm going to get water. And so what happens is they continue to stay dehydrated. Even if they're drinking water, the body doesn't know that it's okay to let go of that rationing protocol. And so I have a way if people. I worked with several holistic doctors all across the country and came up with finally a way to hydrate just about everybody, and it's kind of retraining the brain by drinking small amounts of water every 30 minutes for 3 days straight. I mean, you'd sleep during the night, but during the waking hours.
How much water are you talking about? Small amounts?
Well, you never drink more than 4 ounces, and if you're a small body weight, there's a formula. And I have a paper I can send to you, and if you have you can put it on your website, and they can download it and learn how to hydrate. And you alternate between pure water and water with electrolytes, so that the intercellular and extracellular water creates an exchange and a kind of a pumping action in the body. And people have just told me how their minds have become clearer, their so many health problems that they had are cleared up. I don't know if you've ever heard about Dr. Batmangali.
No, but
He
my
was
engineer is nodding his head yes.
He was an Iranian during the Ayatollah Revolution, was thrown in prison, and he was a doctor. And all these people in prison were saying, "Well, you're a doctor, help me." And he had no medical equipment, no medicine, and so he just told people all he had was water. And so he said, "Well, just keep sipping water here." And all of a sudden, all these conditions that no one has ever said was related to hydration started clearing up. And when he got out of the prison, he started researching, and he wrote a book called "The Body's Many Cries for Water," and how dehydrated we are, and if we just drink water often and properly, we can rehydrate and feel that abundant health that God intended all of us to experience in this world.
When you say 4 ounces every 30 minutes, you're speaking 4 ounces for the 12-hour portion of the time you're awake, or the 15-hour portion?
No, so you set a timer on your phone, and when the timer goes off, you take 4 ounces of pure water, you put it in, you take the first swallow in your mouth, and you wait 8 seconds. Because what happens whenever you put something in your mouth, it sends information to the stomach on how I'm supposed to digest it. And if it's just water, and actually if the water is at the right pH, which is 7.4, which is the pH of the blood, it'll open up the stomach lining and directly start hydrating. Otherwise, it has to go through the kidneys and be buffered. So if you drink high pH water or low pH water, the body has to buffer that so it doesn't kill you. Because if the water isn't 3.957, it won't go into the blood. Otherwise, it would kill you.
Wow, that's interesting. What about different types of water, like well water? We have amazing, mountain water that we drink out of a well. And is there a difference between city water, fluoride water, well water?
Well, yeah, every water has a message in it, and has been.
My water says "I love you."
And saying "I love you" to the water is very beneficial.
Yeah.
They did a study where they took the soup, and each monk prayed over his soup, and they measured the soup's pH before it, and then they measured after everybody had prayed, and everyone had changed and matched the pH needs of that monk.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Where could I get a copy of that story? I would love to read that in detail. That's an amazing story.
Just we'll email each other, and then you can post it. But the Tibetans would every year, all the monks get together around this giant vat of water, and they chant 24 hours for, I think it's like 8 days. They continuously are chanting to this vat of water, and then they start serving it to the people, and everybody starts, healing and having all these amazing experiences drinking that water.
Well, it makes sense. It's like the most natural thing on this planet. It's clear. I mean, we take a bath every day outside. Why don't we take a bath inside? It just makes sense that water is the thing.
We used to have, when I lived in Dallas, water to wine ceremonies. And what we would do is we had an egg-shaped vessel that we would fill up with some pure special water that I would make in my lab that was like super high purity water. So it had no information. I actually disassociated the water and re-imploded it back into water. So it turned it into the gases and ran it through intense magnetic fields and did some real, mad scientist stuff to it. And so we would...
That's why they call you the water wizard, huh?
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
They call me the glad scientist.
I wanted Joseph. This is my engineer who wants to say a few words and get in on this show.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I just had some questions about is it helpful to use certain types of vessels with certain shapes? Or I've heard of people, who put water out and let it sit out in the sun for maybe a period of 12 hours, 24 hours. Yeah, I've heard of people, put water out and let it stay out in the sun to energize the water. Have you familiar with that?
Yes, there are many ways to infuse water with different energies, and people say, well, what's the best way to make water? And I say, well, what's the best music to listen to? Is there just one classical piece that's the best, or many classical pieces? So water will take on information, and so solar energy is a very powerful energy to put in water. It does certain things, but it also distracts from some effects. If you'll watch a stream flowing through a river, it actually has the banks on the south side higher so that the sun is protecting itself from the sun. And so Victor Schauberger in Austria did a bunch of research on the life force of water, and so real high living water in our body, although solar water has a benefit, is usually actually we want it implosive, not centrifugal, but centrifugal, not centripetal effect, if inward and in kind of in the dark womb energy, so that it can do its work inside the body. But there's many people that use solar water for healing certain maladies.
So what about well water?
Well, well water is simply a water in the ground, and so the question then begs is what farm around that well was using pesticides, herbicides about 15 years ago. It's now in the groundwater. So whatever they were using 15, 20 years ago is what's going to show up in the water now.
Well, what about in the mountain, the aqua waters? We're at 5,600 feet. We're way up in the mountains. So
you probably have a water that's pretty mature and good. Inorganic minerals are not really assimilable. Otherwise, we could lick on a rock and get our calcium and suck on a nail and get our iron. So what we want is there's three places in the world where people live well over 100 years old, 140. They're having kids in their late 80s. And the one unique characteristic of that water is it has minerals in it that won't dissolve in the water because they have such an electrical potential that they're like a charged electrolyte. And the water is pure, so if you measure the water, it's pure. So when minerals are dead, they dissolve down into the water. When they're super high zeta potential, they'll stay suspended in the water. And so the water looks kind of like a milky water, and they drink this water, and they're, like, say, living active lives in their 130 years old.
That's amazing. I think the water up here has something special in it, because I tell you, I am never in a bad mood. I'm always joyous. I'm always laughing, and everybody else is walking around grumpy. What is it? I think it's the water.
So you just need to come up to the grump and hand him a bottle and say, drink this and join me.
I should start selling it or something. I don't know. Do you bottle water? Do you make some?
I've put together several life-affirming bottled water plants, one in New Zealand, one in Canada, several in the United States. I have a company called Rain Fresh Water in Dallas, Texas. I have O2 Wise, which is a super oxygenated water that bottle I also formulated for companies like Essentia and several health waters and products that use water as the mechanism to deliver their nutrient or herbal property to the body.
Wow. I want some of your bottled water. You got to ship some up to us up here so we can have that elixir of youth.
So water is, like I say, it's just the most magnificent mystery. We think that that it's just H2O, and actually when you put electricity on water, the hydrogen and the oxygen separate. But in a liquid form, there's over 33 substances in pure water.
Wow. That's amazing.
And it's like like I say, it's water can be country and western music, or it can be classical, or as you pointed out earlier, it could be a dissident, hard rock music that actually breaks down the body. One of the researchers in water came to his research because in Japan they were using heavy magnetic fields to sterilize water in a hospital, and people that were drinking this water were having seizures.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just water.
Right.
And so he realized, well, if it could do this negative effect, couldn't it have a positive biological effect? And so water is really the food of the future, it's the medicine of the future, it's the energy of the future.
Do you think a man could live on water alone?
I met one. I was speaking at a raw foods festival in Sedona, Arizona, and a man from India who lived on water and sun gazing for 35 years.
Wow.
And after the event was over, I spent 3 extra days with this man just to, download the amazingness of a person that has truly, and the quality of water. He couldn't drink tap water. That would really mess him up.
Yeah, really. I can't drink it either. It's got a vibration to it that just, it's like alcohol. I can't drink alcohol because I can't get it close to my nose. It smells. But tap water does the same thing to me. I get this feeling, and it's like I can't put it in my mouth. I can't drink tap water.
Well, think of if we take any tap water in the United States.
I mean, city
and we
tap.
measure it for the 10 most commonly prescribed pharmaceuticals, we'll find traces of all of those in the water.
Oh my gosh, I would believe it. No wonder we have such a messed up society.
Exactly, they're drinking this cocktail, the homeopathic cocktail of vibrational madness in a system that is so away from the life-affirming things that God intended us to experience.
Well, it
livingness.
It makes perfect sense because it's the core of a diet, water. I mean, seriously, everybody drinks water, everyone.
Mm-hmm. And really, we're not for the living water that we eat in fruits and vegetables. Most of us would be far more sicker. That's usually where we get our best water, is from fruits and vegetables.
Oh my gosh. This is just amazing information. I am Water Wizard. You are more than a water wizard. You've got to get this information out even further than where we are. So we're going to have you on the Trek Upward radio show as well, and have Arthur and I interview you with a series of questions to educate people and make them see how important this is, and how precious water should be, and how it should be treated. In the sense not treated by chemical means, but treated with love and treated with a...
Right. Well, in ancient times, the well would be guarded by the spiritual leader of the village.
Oh my gosh.
Because they understood the importance of water, and that's why water is a part of every spiritual tradition. In my spiritual tradition, which is, mystical Judaism, the mikvah, the immersion that we do, it says in the Torah that everything that can become unclean that touches something that's clean makes it unclean. So an unclean person that touches another person makes them unclean. But water is the only thing that an unclean thing can touch, and it makes it clean.
Huh.
And so that's why we do the ritual mikvah where we before the Sabbath we immerse ourselves in this water, and the water actually has it has to be a certain amount of rainwater, and it has to have certain properties for it to be an official mikvah.
Interesting. Over my head, but very interesting. It just, I'm sure there are, just if we get into the history books, there's probably amazing rituals that all kinds of religions and spiritual types, Eastern and Western, have done to as I listen to what you have to say about water, that's when it really comes to me that it's something special, and there's probably some great stories and teachings to be found in the ancient books on how important it is. I read this book called Dweller on Two Planets by Philos, and he was talking about how they were contaminating the water back in the lost continent of Atlantis, if you believe that there were continents before us, and that to this day that water actually has been contaminated and flows through our water systems. Interesting, 10,000-year-old water. So, I mean...
Yeah, and water retains memory.
Yeah.
So, in essence, we could take some glacier ice of, tens of thousands of years ago and connect with that water, and really it has the file of what was going on back there energetically.
Wow.
One of the things that I do on the mystical side of my research is I go out to bodies of water and go into a meditation and project my consciousness into the water stream, and then I retrieve it, and then I get these downloads, and I go into the lab and try to verify these impressions and insights into some kind of scientific method that could validate it.
Wow. That's what they used to do in Atlantis. The priesthood of the Order of Melchizedek, they were scientists and they were spiritual, and they were united. So they discovered all kinds of things because of the two coming together. That's exactly
right. And until science and spirituality are one, we will continue to make these explosive, destructive technologies that come from the darker side and bring man into more chaos. When we regain our spirituality and become stewards of the spiritual science, that's when we start raising up the vibration of humanity and start increasing the evolutionary process.
Well, the whole point is to become pure, because when you're pure, you're uncontaminated. When you're uncontaminated, you're able to retain pure light energy. And so water is the crux of the matter.
I just encourage people to even see how simple, making sure that your shower doesn't have chlorine turning your shower into a gas chamber.
Ooh.
And because it's, breathing it through the lungs is worse than actually drinking it.
Okay, that's it. I'm never moving to the big city again. That's it.
And if anybody, I have little shower filters that I've designed that actually remove the chlorine. But if if you don't have chlorine coming through, just whenever you're under stress or anxious, just take a shower and just, call out to spirit, surrender, and you'll find that shower will renew you in a way that nothing else will. And a lot of times we subconsciously do that. We just hop in the shower and all of a sudden we feel better, and we don't realize the connection that water had of helping us rid that kind of auric field that surrounds that body with that negative energy.
Right.
The water works as a mediator to kind of cleanse us and bring us back into a state of purity.
Wow. How can people get a hold of you and buy your shower equipment or get more information from you? How can we get a hold of you? Tell us.
You have a website, right, that I can provide some links and stuff?
Absolutely. But I would like, do you have a phone number people can call you? Do you have a
Yes,
website?
they can feel free to call me, and if they have questions, I try to help anybody, try to empower them, even if I don't make a sale or anything from it. A lot of people call me about different water ionizers or purifiers that they have, and I've helped people fix their own equipment. So I really want to empower people with the wisdom of water.
So tell us.
214-934-7522. 214-934-7522.
So that's 214-934-7522 to get a hold of Josef Bender, who is an amazing water wizard. I mean, this has been totally captivating. I am so glad we had you on. And I look forward to doing another show with you with Arthur Thumb and the Trek Upward radio show soon. And maybe we can talk more about this and get this information out there.
That'd be fun.
And thank you for being on.
Okay, you guys have a wonderful evening and stay healthy, happy, and hydrated.
Okay. Bye. That was an amazing show, Josef Bender. And if you want to get a hold of him, his number is 214-934-7522. And so, it's interesting. We just did a water show on the time when Mercury is in Virgo. And Virgo, of course, rules food, it rules diet, it rules all the things that we take in. So how appropriate to have a show on water. Water. Who would, go figure. Anyway, thank you for listening. This is the Astrology Gene Hart radio show. Please, if you want to get your chart done, call me at 406-599-3934. That's 406-599-3934. Or go to astrologygenehart.com. And that's it for now. Bye.